So here, very early in 2026, I feel we're all resting on a fulcrum, a pivot point, and living in a country and in a world that's more in need of healing than ever before. There won't be a tremendous allotment of jokes in today's talk. A few. We need peace.
We need laughter.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. We are co-creators with God, creating reality through thoughts held in mind. That's what the third unity principle says. We need to live that principle. Today I want to introduce to you, if you have not heard of this man, a leader in peace and reconciliation whose work will move you greatly, I'm certain, and share some of what he's recently written. I'm talking about Azim Khamisa, born in Kenya, a U.S. citizen with a background as an international investment banker, just like so many of us. In 1995, Azim lost his only son, killed by a 14-year-old wannabe gang member in San Diego. From this tragedy, Azim somehow saw that his pathway to inner peace could only be through forgiveness. Perhaps this was grace, that he had that perception. In any event, he felt it was his only route to healing. Now, this didn't happen all at once. The grace unfolded over a period of time. Azima has written that while in ritual prayers 40 days after his son's death, he received this message from a spiritual teacher. It is human to grieve, but I recommend, the teacher said, that you break the paralysis of your grief and find a good deed to do in Tariq's name. Mm-hmm. Compassionate acts, it went on, undertaken in the name of the departed, are spiritual currency. That's a rather effective message to give a banker. Azim investigated the case against his son's killer and found that this 14-year-old, Tony, had written a letter to the court in which he said, I pled guilty to first-degree murder because I am guilty. I still don't know why I shot Tariq. And by the way, all of us having been 14 at one point, and all of us knowing 14-year-olds, how many of them don't really know why they do things? He went on to write, I pray to God every day that Mr. Khamisa will forgive me for what I have done. And for as long as I live, I will continue to pray to God to give him strength to deal with his loss. So Azim sought out the imprisoned young man who'd taken his son's life, and he told him, I forgive you. Imagine doing this, forgiving your child's murderer. In fact, Azim went on to write a book about all this titled From Murder to Forgiveness. He befriended the youth's grandfather, his sole family and caregiver. And that tells you a little bit about why Tony had lost his way. And in that same year, 1995, he founded the Tariq Khamisa Foundation to teach peace, forgiveness, and reconciliation to people of all ages, but especially to school children. He persuaded the imprisoned boy's grandfather, Ples Felix, to be an active participant. And in his January newsletter that I read just last month, Azim wrote, "Many conversations I've had recently circle around a shared feeling, a deep concern about the state of our country and our world. Not panic necessarily, not despair, but a persistent unease. I feel that a lot of us know what that feels like." He went on to write, "A sense that we are standing at a crossroads, unsure which way we are headed, and quietly wondering what is being asked of us. What I am sensing now," he wrote, "is that the discomfort we feel is not meant to paralyze us, but to invite awakening." In this moment of awakening, in grappling with all that challenges us each day, what reflections, what inspirations, what actions may come to us? What's our responsibility, our calling in this wounded world? What is God asking of us? For my part, I've been seeking guidance from the highest sources I know of, from models of peacemaking, from history and from our world today. So I recently read Gandhi, a memoir by William Shirer, a brief biography of Mohandas K. Gandhi, more often known as Mahatma Gandhi, Mahatma meaning great soul. The truth this volume reveals about Gandhi's life is this: while he worked tirelessly for the cause of freeing India from the yoke of British rule, and achieved this goal in his lifetime, he found his soul's true expression in daily spiritual practice, which never ceased for him. Now, you may have seen a photo of the Mahatma at a spinning wheel, but perhaps not everyone is conversant with what part spinning played in Gandhi's daily practice. The spinning wheel became a symbol of independence in India under Gandhi's leadership. The British Raj had ruled India since the 1850s, and British goods, especially factory-produced cloth, kept Indians ensnared in a web of dependency on the British. In 1918, Gandhi started to spin and entreated his countrymen and women to do the same and to stop using British-made fabrics, becoming self-reliant. And this spinning wheel became such a powerful symbol that its image was put on the first flag of India, one made from homespun cloth, which Gandhi himself designed. Now, from 1918 until his life ended in 1948, Gandhi was at his spinning wheel for 2 hours every day, an unwavering commitment. What this meant in daily life, I read in Shirer's book. He recounts how Gandhi was engaged in negotiations with the Indian National Congress and then with the British government in 1930 and 1931, when we were all very young. And during these deliberations, Gandhi, then in his 60s, might only get to his spinning wheel at midnight or 1 a.m., so busy had his day been. But he gladly and consistently put in his 2 hours of spinning before retiring for what would often be a very short night of sleep, for he always rose at 4 a.m. and did not break this pattern. Shirer, who was an international correspondent, wrote that Gandhi was the only political figure he ever met for whom politics was only a part, an expression of a spiritual life. Gandhi, for example, was in a prayer meeting every day without fail. He observed a day of silence each Monday even when in the midst of political negotiations. And when once asked how he could continue political talks on a Monday, he simply said that on those days he would be able to listen with even greater attention. The first time Shirer met Gandhi in 1931, he wanted to know how could the Indians possibly overcome the British. And Gandhi said it would happen only through soul force or truth force, two translations of his term satyagraha. The British, he said, want to put the struggle on the plane of machine guns, where they have the weapons and we do not. Our only assurance of beating them is putting the struggle on a plane where we have the weapons and they do not. He said this would be through satyagraha, the force of soul, the force of truth, which powered Gandhi's movement and its nonviolent resistance to the British. He taught that satyagraha at root means holding on to truth. And this part is very interesting and important, that he said the pursuit of truth was not about violence being inflicted on one's opponent, but that one you oppose must be weaned from error by patience and compassion. And patience, he wrote, means self-suffering. The doctrine came to mean vindication of truth, not by inflicting suffering on someone else, but on oneself. We'll see this again and again. A spiritual approach to resolving conflicts means not imposing violence on anyone, but if violence must be suffered, one takes that on oneself as a spiritual duty. I can speak to this. I'm not saying I volunteered for the suffering, but that's the difficult part of this. To live, to walk that talk, right? Gandhi lived a paradox of sorts, for he surely did suffer. In a life of short sleep, frequent fasting, and recurrent imprisonment by British authorities. He spent over 2,000 days and nights in jail. Almost 6.5 years of his life.
His Majesty's Hotel.
Yes, there you go. Yet Shirer said that what amazed him was that the Mahatma readily smiled and had a quick wit, which he used often and freely. He seemed to enjoy life, filled with privation and discipline, though his might be. And he wore only clothes made from the fabric his spinning wheel had produced. When Gandhi met with King George V in 1931, he did not vary his dress in any way, greeting the monarch clad only in a dhoti, sandals, and a shawl. Challenged by a British journalist following this encounter by these rules, "Don't you realize there's a dress code for meeting with the king?" Gandhi replied, "The king was wearing enough clothes for both of us." When his life was brought to a violent end by an assassin's bullet on January 30th, 1948, it's said that his final words were not, "Wait," or "Stop," or "I left the kettle on," but simply Ram, a name of God, a call to God, the creator of a peaceful and nonviolent independence for India. His life then ended by violence, focused only on God with his final breath, as he had focused on God throughout his life. Satyagraha and nonviolence are principles that Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis, following Gandhi's lead, brought to the civil rights struggle, made cornerstones of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. King's life became a model of this truth force and the power of love, perhaps never more so than when his Alabama home was bombed in 1956. Informed of the bombing, the young pastor rushed home to see that his wife and infant daughter were unharmed. Then came to the front porch and addressed an unruly crowd, many holding knives, guns, and broken bottles. And he told them, "Don't get panicky. Don't do anything panicky. If you have weapons, take them home. He who lives by the sword will perish by the sword." Remember, that is what Jesus said. We are not advocating violence. We want to love our enemies. I want you to love our enemies. Be good to them. This is what we must live by. We must meet hate with love. We must meet hate with love. We must love our enemies. We are not here to inflict suffering on them. John Lewis, as a 25-year-old on Bloody Sunday in 1965, was leading the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge when he was attacked by Alabama state troopers and their civilian posse, wielding nightsticks and tear gas. Lewis has said publicly that he had the strength to do this only because he'd studied the life and teaching of Gandhi, stating, "We made a commitment to the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. I was beaten, left bloody and unconscious." And he goes on to say in this talk I've transcribed, "One of the guys that beat me and left me bloody came to my office in February of 2009. He was in his 70s, and he brought his son in his 40s, and he said, 'Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you.'" Right? "I want to apologize. Will you forgive me?" I said, "I accept your apology. I forgive you." He started crying, and his son started crying. They hugged me. I hugged them back. The power of the way of peace, the power of the way of love, the power of nonviolence can help change some of our most difficult and unbelievable problems, he said. Be consistent and be persistent, and never, ever give up. Never become bitter or hostile, and never hate. For hate, he said, is too heavy a burden to bear. The way of love is better. We must meet hate with love. The way of love is better. Of course, Jesus told us to love our enemies and to turn the other cheek. And when arrested in Gethsemane after Peter had taken his sword and cut off the ear of one of the high priest's servants, Jesus told him to put away his blade. And the Prince of Peace then allowed himself to be taken away to his own suffering, to his passion. Expressions of love, peace, and unity are not routinely featured in the media we consume, in news stories, on our phones or computer screens. They don't rise to the top. Perhaps some algorithm did not select them for our eyes. But they are ever growing, organically rooted in the soil of human connection. Thich Nhat Hanh, a friend of Martin Luther King's, taught about peace all throughout his long life. And because this year, 2026, is his centennial, I'm reading his work often. He wrote, "By cultivating peace within, we bring about peace in society. It depends on us. The other person is not our enemy. Our enemies are misunderstanding, violence, hatred, anger. He said, try to bring peace into yourself first. When you are calm and when you are able to see that the other person is a victim of hate, confusion, and violence, your anger is no longer there. There are times when my anger doesn't get the message. This is a practice, a lifelong practice. But what would we rather practice? Anger, hatred, and bitterness? No. Thank you, Minnie Mouse. Or love, compassion, and forgiveness. Let me close by telling you about another beautiful and inspiring strand in this tapestry of love and interrelatedness. You may know about it yourselves, but allow me to elaborate about the Walk for Peace. The Walk for Peace is a 2,300-mile pilgrimage of Buddhist monks who began in Fort Worth, Texas, and who even now, even in all conditions, are journeying on foot to Washington, D.C. These monks began their odyssey on October 26th and have traveled through Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. They're currently in Virginia. I think they're still in Virginia.
We'll be in D.C. by Tuesday.
Exactly. And will continue as peace pilgrim, used to say, on foot and on faith, until they reach our nation's capital in just a couple of days. 3 of them, including the head monk, had chosen originally to walk barefoot each step of the way, though this has been modified to some extent. They've been sleeping on the ground, in the weather, whatever the conditions. To be so oblivious to one's own comfort seems somehow un-American. Yet their Facebook page has over 2.6 million followers. And when I first looked only a few weeks back, the number was 1.6 million. They travel with their beloved peace dog, Aloka. He has his own Facebook page with over 960,000 followers. I didn't look this morning. Maybe it's 1 million by now. Everywhere they go, the brothers and Aloka are greeted by hundreds, even thousands of people who line the pathways and attend their public events. People are greeting the monks in what we may think of as the Bible Belt, in what we could call red states, where perhaps we'd imagine there'd be some great measure of intolerance toward people from a different corner of the globe, of a different faith tradition, with a different skin color. But instead of intolerance, we see enthusiasm, love, engagement. We see people inspired by and hungry for a message of peace that these Buddhist brothers embody. As I, and as you too, I am certain, yearn for this peace. May we practice peace with all our hearts, all our strength, all our love. May we be the peace and love this world so sorely needs. May we devote ourselves daily to the cause of love and peace. May we never, ever give up. And may we know deep in our hearts that we are here together in love and unity.